Good morning and welcome to members of the media, to families, educators, and all other participants this morning. We thank you so much for joining us for the presentation of Family Engagement Training for Educators in Pre-Service, Common Sense, but No Common Practice. This report is published by the Parent Organization Network, which I will refer to as the PON, which is serving families in 6 school districts in Los Angeles County. We want to be sure that you're aware that the webinar this morning is being recorded, and so just know that if you would rather not be seen or heard, you can make those adjustments, but we hope you'll stay with us. The purpose of this qualitative study was to understand California's current state of family engagement training in pre-service and how it can be improved or strengthened. The following questions guided our study, or the following purposes. One, to discover California laws requiring pre-service family engagement training for educators. Also to explore how current educator credentialing programs in California universities integrate family and/or community engagement content and field work. We wanted to describe how family engagement training differs in pre-service programs compared with in-service programs once teachers are already and administrators are already assigned to schools. And then we also wanted to make sure that we recommended key levers that can impact policy and improve practice. I'll be the moderator for today. My name is Dr. Joyce Germain Watts. I am the co-chair of the PON Advisory Board. My experiences include teaching from elementary through university, counseling, program coordination at schools and in district posts. I also have spent quite a while in the nonprofit environment and in youth, family, and community engagement. Also, I'm a parent and a grandparent. And this morning, I have the honor of moderating a panel of distinguished community members, who are parents themselves, also professionals in a range of fields, and you're going to hear from them in a moment. But I'd like you to know who they are. Rigel Spencer-Massaro is Senior Legislative Counsel at Public Advocacy, and she's also a parent. Araceli Simeon is the Project Director of Parent Organization Network, and she's also a parent. Shulamit N. Ritblat, Dr. Shulamit N. Ritblat, is Professor of Child and Family Development and Director of the Center for Family, School, and Community Engagement at San Diego State University. She also is a parent and a grandparent. And Jessica Limon is the parent leader with Gente Organizada in Pomona. I just want to remind you again that the webinar is being recorded. We also are really grateful to Mockingbird Publications, who along with Dr. Ritblat contributed to editing the report, to Claudette C. Contreras for graphic design, and of course to our funders, the Annenberg Foundation, the California Endowment, the Stewart Foundation United Way of Greater Los Angeles. Next, please. Why we studied this topic. The challenges in establishing collaborative relationships. This report is the latest in a series that have been released by PON that focus on family engagement, and therefore the information that we were gathering is providing insights that are essential to achieving PON's mission. Insights and evidence. The mission of the Parent Organization Network is to unite the power of underserved parents to break through barriers in public education, so that parents and educators can effectively partner to ensure equity and excellence for all students. As you'll see, the report sheds some essential light on how well our system is working, and we do mean systemically across sectors, California in terms of those that prepare teacher candidates, and that's our main focus, but as we said, it also has implications for in-service training. So we know that in this particular moment, remember, of course, that when this study started, we were not in the midst of a pandemic. Right now, the timing of the report could not be more crucial in that there are unprecedented demands on educators and on families to be able to function in a distance learning environment. So for a moment, we don't have a rule book, and we're trying to figure it out, and we think that the report is very timely for that purpose. Needless to say, while we celebrate diversity, that also creates some challenges. And right now we know that there are tensions that are more heightened in terms of interaction across race, across class, across culture, across language. And so again, we think that the findings from the report are really appropriate at this moment. So while we focus in on pre-service, again, the university coursework that educators or soon-to-be educators are completing to prepare for their roles or to earn their credentials, we know that these findings also have implications, because when you leave the university, you go into a school environment, and that school has its own culture. So even though we focus on pre-service, let's think about how the findings apply to teachers who are right now, teachers, principals who are right now in service training as well. And so with that, we are going to learn more about the findings, the causes, and the disconnect between what research has told us about the crucial importance of family and community engagement and what actually we find is the practice. I'll turn this over now to our colleague, Rigel Spencer-Massaro. She's going to focus on the legal aspects.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Just briefly about me, my name is Rigel. I am, as Joyce said, a parent of a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. My 6-year-old's going into virtual first grade here next month. Prior to becoming an attorney, I was a middle school teacher. Also after going to law school, I spent some time representing parents, immigrant parents, who had students with disabilities. I was very much attracted to public advocates because of a community partnership model we embody in our work, whereby we partner with low-income and parents of color in activist organizations such as Gente Organizada, where Jessica is a leader. And so I was really privileged to collaborate with Araceli on this report. And I just wanted to ground us a bit in the law, federal law and state law, which is based on the robust research out there around the value and importance of authentic parent partnership in schools. So we distinguish, just to do a quick terminology, in service. In service is when teachers are in the classroom, employed as teachers. They are in service to students. So when teachers are teaching, when educators are educating, federal Title I law requires local education agencies and schools, and I just want to read this because I think it's important to ground us in the words of the law. They shall educate teachers, specialized instructional support personnel, principals, and other school leaders and other staff with the assistance of parents in the value and utility of contributions of parents, and how to reach out to, communicate with, and work with parents as equal partners. Implement and coordinate parent programs and build ties between parents and school. So in this federal law, I wanted to just lift up that this is about all educators. And we're talking about from support personnel to teachers to school leaders. And we're talking about working with parents to figure out a way to partner equally with parents. And I just really, I think this is powerful language. And California law implements federal law and actually extends these requirements, not just to Title I schools, but to all schools. And so then I wanted to talk also about pre-service. So that is, we're going back in time a little bit. Pre-service is what is required before a teacher is a teacher. So it is essentially in a preparation program. We don't have federal law requiring having specific requirements of teacher preparation programs. The federal government leaves that for the states to govern. And so in California, we have law on point that requires the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, or we use the acronym here, the CTC, to establish standards for all preparation programs. We have over 150 preparation programs in the state to prepare educators to serve as active partners to parents and guardians of our students. And so we have law on point governing the preparation of teachers to engage parents when they're becoming teachers. And then once they're teachers, we have state and federal law requiring that the schools and the districts continue that education with parents to work with parents as equal partners. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you. And I work in the policy world, so I just want to share, remind us about why this is so important, which I know others are going to cover on, but I just also really want to emphasize. So we know relating to families across difference is particularly important when we have a teacher workforce that does not look like our students and our families in California. So we really have it flipped. You can see here that about 63% of our teachers are white in California, which does not resemble the 70% of our students and families who are of color, primarily Latinx families. And I want to just shout out, like, this is getting better in California, and California is doing better than the rest of the country, and still we have a long way to go. And I just want to remind us that the law is based on the research. That's how we get changes in law, is by proving that this is the best thing for kids. And so we know that robust engagement with families actually is great for our bottom line. It's better for student achievement. It improves the bottom line for districts in that it leads to increased teacher retention. The turnover a teacher can cost about $20,000. So if you really have robust community partnerships and parent engagement, we're talking higher student achievement, higher student engagement, and a place where teachers, administrators want to stay. And I just want to reiterate why Public Advocates really cares about this. Our experience working with parent and student groups across the state who are hungry to engage and improve learning opportunities for students is that families of color really struggle to feel engaged. We have a really powerful law in California around our funding formula that requires engagement throughout the year with parents and students at the school level and at the district level. And so even with those requirements, again, based on our experience and based on research and law, engagement too often feels like a box to check. And that's the experience that we have witnessed with parents and students. And one thing I should have put on this slide is that when you talk to parents about what is important and what their contributions are and kind of why things may be the way they are to get their intelligence to solve problems, it is so powerful. So when parents feel welcome to contribute regardless of race or language or income, they are such powerful partners and problem solvers in our schools. So thank you so much, Araceli and Pon, for the opportunity to share. And I'll turn it over to Araceli now to share more about the report's findings.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Araceli Simeon, and I work with the Parent Organization Network. I have 19 years of experience working with families in education and have been involved with the Parent Organization Network since its inception in 2005. In the process, I've also become a mom. And so I have two daughters, one in middle school and one that is now going to be entering virtual high school. And so I'm here today to share our findings about the requirements for education preparation programs. But before we go into the findings, we first have to understand the process that the Commission has laid out to operationalize laws and standards into practice. And so we found that there's this process that functions as a filtering system that can be effective at extracting the most essential concepts educators must know and be able to do through these 3 layers or filters. And the first one really establishes standards for different professions in education. And the standards often reflect legal mandates and the vision that the commission is laying out. The second filter, its purpose is really to narrow down the concepts and spell out or outline what should the content and the field work look like. And tests for students to get their credentials are aligned to the second filter. And so schools of education pay close attention to that filter. The last filter, accreditation, is really to ensure that all the standards and expectations are in line and implemented in a university program. And those are reviewed every 7 years. And so in order, as we looked into education preparation programs, I looked at 5 programs. And really 4 of them are teacher programs and 1 administrators. The first one is highlighted because in order to specialize in bilingual or special education, you first have to attain either before or concurrently your general education teacher program. And so part of what we found is that the law that, the state law that Rigel mentioned is not reflected in the standards and expectations. Family engagement requirements varied across different preparation programs, and we'll be looking more into what that looks like. And we also reviewed not just the requirements, but what were the mentions, the frequency, and the context in which family engagement was looked at, and found that what is said sometimes in the standards is not aligned in the expectation, and sometimes it's not even aligned to research. When it came to accreditation, there was limited information available online, and we ran out of time to request additional details as to what that looks like for family engagement as different courses are being reviewed. And so as you can see, when we compare program requirements across those 5 programs, part of what became very apparent is that 3 of the programs have very explicit requirements. They either require a class, clinical practice hours, or dedicate a full standard to family and community engagement. But really for the general education teacher preparation program, this was lacking. There's several mentions of family throughout the elements and indicators, but there was no standard or no explicit requirement. Again, when we looked at the themes in the programs, those that have more explicit requirements tend to have the standards and the performance aligned to each other. They mirror what they're promoting in the standards in the second filter that different programs are upholding, except for the general education program. For this program, the standards lay out this vision of knowledge and understanding of families to support student learning, and talk about collaboration, talk about partnership. But as it goes through the second filter, all of those concepts are stripped away, and really what is upheld and endorsed is one-way communication. And one-way communication refers to talking at parents about rules and standards and student progress, which is important, but it's only one part of the communication from the teacher to the families. He leaves out the interaction from families to the teacher and how that should influence changes in instruction. And so in order to find out how the field interprets the different credentialing requirements, we did interviews. I interviewed 12 professors from 10 universities, and I also reviewed online course descriptions or syllabi for 16 courses. And so we chose these 12 professors, one because they responded to our request, but also we reached out to them because they were integrating family engagement in their courses or were interested in doing so. And so we learned that they perceive that the education field considers family engagement an optional add-on. So many of these professors chose to do something about it, but most felt it wasn't required or a priority for their peers. When it came to barriers, several barriers were identified, but the one that everyone agreed on and identified was this law that caps the units to 120 units of classes that student teachers must take in order to get the credential. So they said that this cap creates a barrier to add any new topics. And so again, even though this has been required and on the books since 1993, 27 years, for many of them, they think it's a new topic to add. And so the lack of consistency and requirements led to a wide variance on the time spent on the subject, the content that is covered, and the type and rigor of fieldwork. And not everyone assigns fieldwork. And so we also saw that there was a relationship correlation. So for programs where the requirement is explicit, we found a lot more standalone courses and more fieldwork. But for the programs where it was more ambiguous or encouraged but not required, then we saw, again, that the work was optional and there was less presence and less fieldwork assigned to students. We also took a look at how professional development providers tackle this issue once teachers, or not just teachers, but educators are in schools. And so part of what we found is that all the 16 providers that we talked with identified starting training by first reviewing research on family engagement and the impact it has on student outcomes and school improvement. And so we also identified a sequence. So most of the providers give training on school site action teams to plan and implement. And then if it is well received or there's buy-in, then typically they move to administrator training. Right now, administrator training is focused on community engagement as required by the stakeholder engagement in the local control funding formula. And the last, even though many of the providers do have options and trainings for teachers, a lot of them mentioned that there was low demand, and typically they get to it only after they've trained full site teams and administrators. So it can be challenging, again, to get training to teachers. And last, I'll leave you with some of the recommendations based on what we found is that we call upon California officials to establish clear and consistent requirements as prescribed by laws and the Commission standards, especially for the general education teacher preparation program. And we also want to highlight the need for the California Department of Education to prioritize family engagement training at this point, given that more and more parents have been thrust into playing a greater teacher role at home. And so as schools as school districts continue distance learning this fall, it is imperative that they improve family engagement partnerships so that we can bridge the digital divide and be able to support students in the fall. And so now I want to introduce one of our guests. Professor Riplat will give us insight from training both student teachers and current educators on family engagement.
Thank you, Araceli, and happy to be here today. First of all, as a mom of 3 adult children and a grandmother of 4 younger grandkids. And as a professor of child and family development with the focus on social emotional development and early childhood mental health, I was trained on the notion that development takes place in the cultural context of the family and the community. Next slide. So this coincides with the bioecological model of Bronfenbrenner that really views the individual as a member in 5 interconnected systems. And as we notice in the model, we can see that the family and the school are both systems that are in close proximity to the child and in direct interaction with him or her. Therefore, it is critical that we recognize the important role of the family in education and the critical need for partnership between these two systems, schools and homes. This is common sense that is grounded in theory and research, but it is not common practice. And we can move to the next slide. The field of teacher education has struggled with the notion of partnership, as it views the educational system and the educators as holding the power of knowledge and having the ultimate responsibility to educate the child. This notion is reinforced by the focus on achievement that is based on test scores and meeting the required performance standard. In my journey as a professor, department chair, and now the director of the Center for Family, School, and Community Engagement, I have worked to provide my students and professionals in the field with the deep understanding of the importance of relationship-based partnership with families to support together the learning process, the development and educational outcome of children. So for example, early on in my career, I put it to practice. And more than 25 years ago, when I taught the course about children with special need, I required my student to visit a child with special needs at his or her home once a week for the whole entire semester, albeit a lot of criticisms from faculty and administration. And this experience has provided my students with the understanding of what challenges and what does it take for family to support their child educational journey. Since then, I pushed a lot of revisions in curriculum to include courses examining different diverse family structures, culture, have a hands-on experiences practicing home visits, hands-on experiences working with families, communicating with them. Believing in the role and critical role of families and seeing parents as the first teacher of the child, I worked hard to establish the Center for Family, School, and Community Engagement to provide the technical support and lead the effort to empower parents and educate administrators, teachers, and family engagement liaisons, how to reach out, how to communicate, how to partner with families to benefit the children. However, no doubt that the focus on family engagement has been a discretionary, optional topic for faculty to determine how much emphasis they are going to put in it. A teacher preparation program see the role in preparing teachers to know the subject matter and are less concerned about training teachers to understand the rearing context of students and how it plays a role in the learning outcomes and how to partner with families. Across the state and nationwide, we see major differences among counties, school districts, in their efforts to engage and partner with families. And we can move to the next slide. That really, we see that it really depends if we have a champion, if we have an advocate. And when it happens, we know what are the benefits, and the benefits are for both, all parties. So we need a more unified educational systems and teacher preparation program requirements that really value the importance of partnering with families and have dedicated coursework, training, and field experiences to support it. And the last slide, and support it utilizing evidence-based work or practices such as the PTA, 4 principles of transformative family engagement that includes inclusive, individualized, integrated, and impactful practices. And let's hear a parent experience, and let's pass the mic to Jessica, our parent representative.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Jessica Limón. Soy parte de PON y Gente Organizada en Pomona. Soy madre activa en el distrito de Pomona por 16 años. Los padres son una parte importante de la relación maestro y escuela. Y creo en el empoderamiento de padres residen nuestros hijos. He tomado la iniciativa de establecer relaciones con maestros de mis hijos y ser padre activo. Lamentablemente, no es el patrón habitual en la mayoría de las escuelas donde muchos padres no participan. Mi misión no solo es abogar por mis hijos, sino también en nombre de todos los otros padres que tienen de miedo de hablar con maestros porque no se sienten bienvenidos ahí. Uno de los desafíos para estar activo en las escuelas es que todos los maestros quieren conversar con los padres. No todos los maestros quieren conversar con los padres. Otro es la discriminación debido al idioma, ya que muchas veces no tienen quien traduzca. La capacitación que ayuda a los nuevos maestros a comprender y relacionarse mejor con diversas familias contribuirá en gran medida a fortalecer y hacer más efectivas nuestras relaciones, especialmente ahora en tiempos de pandemia. En estos tiempos difíciles de pandemia y de estudio a distancia, el único apoyo es con otros padres. No se necesita ser así. Las dificultades en tiempos de pandemia para mí fue aprender a utilizar la plataforma de Zoom y a su vez a instruir a otros padres. La voz de los padres es parte importante de nuestro sistema educativo público y no podemos guardar silencio. Gracias.
Well, we are going to pause here for a moment. If we were in person, we'd probably give a round of applause to our panel.
Ahora le vamos a dar un aplauso al panel.
Did everyone get the translation of Jessica's presentation?
No, she needs to
Okay.
translate.
Okay, Lorna. Araceli, maybe you know technically how this works, please.
So Lorna, could you provide the summary of Jessica's testimony?
Okay. Good morning, my name is Jessica Limon and I'm a member of PON and Gente Organizada in Pomona. I'm also a mother and I have been actively engaged in my child's education. As a parent, and I've been an active parent in my community, but I see that it is not the usual pattern, as most parents are not active. I advocate not just for my child, but also for other parents who have many challenges to be active as well, because not all teachers want to speak to the parents. And also another barrier for us is a language, because translation is not usually provided. So we see that training teachers to learn how to work with families of diverse backgrounds is going to make things better for everybody, and especially now in this time of pandemic and distance learning, where we parents are leaning on each other for support, and it shouldn't have to be this way. One of the biggest challenges for me has been learning Zoom, and then also now in turn teaching it to other parents. I think that parents' voices are very important and we cannot remain silent anymore.
Thank you, Lorna, and thank you, Jessica, and all of our panelists. So at this point, we know that we are delighted to open this up for questions, particularly from our media guest, Richard Garcia. And it's a sort of open discussion at this point. Any of the speakers and Mr. Garcia, if you have questions that you want to direct toward any of the panelists whom you've heard, we welcome you to do that now.
Sure, thank you, I appreciate it. Just one quick question. Speaking with folks who are part of the PTA systems, their recruitment, their ongoing recruitment issues have been, lackluster parent involvement, folks who have kind of engaged with them at some of the school functions, but kind of dropped off the radar. With budgetary issues occurring, across the nation with schools, and parents who are strapped for economic reasons are not able to engage in the classroom as volunteers or participate in school functions because they're working one or two jobs. Has there been a look at whether or not schools should create a liaison position that is strictly for parent engagement and recruitment, so that dads clubs, PTAs, the like, so that they have basic training? A lot of school districts offer some Spanish language courses for parents to get them engaged, but they have very lackluster attendance. Has there ever been given thought to creating a position within a school district that is strictly for parent engagement?
I have worked with the first two reports. This is the third of 3 reports, and the first 2 reports focused on our experiences in providing professional development to 4 school districts in LA County. And part of what we found is that a lot of the school districts do have some structures to reach out and work with families. And so oftentimes these positions are called parent and community liaisons. Part of what we found is that these positions are part-time, only a couple hours a week. And oftentimes they can be not used for actual outreach and engagement, but maybe given other roles, given the various needs that schools have. And so part of one of the challenges that loops back to pre-service is that oftentimes the persons that are charged with family engagement are not typically administrators. So typically they don't have a lot of autonomy within their roles or support. They tend to immerse themselves in the research, but they tend to be siloed and not fully supported. And so part of what we're trying to address here is the broader systemic problem, because a few persons by themselves cannot be tasked with the goal of reaching out every parent. It should be, as you saw by the law, it should be a shared responsibility with teachers and other staff. But when they don't receive the training during pre-service, then oftentimes they think this is not part of their job. This is an add-on that somebody else should do. And that's where we see that it breaks down or it doesn't fully happen.
Thank you. Do you find, and I'm looking through the report, when it comes to how parents view engagement with their local school or their school districts, do you find with whether it's communities of color or those of lower economic incomes, do you find that there's an intimidation issue from the parents' perspective, or do you see a value issue with parents where they just don't seem to value either education or the system itself?
Yes, well, I think that there's cultural and linguistic differences, and those are part of the barriers that don't make this easy. It is assumed that people can just come together and have interactions and conversations about education, but the demographics has been changing, and as you've heard, a lot of our teachers, the workforce may still be white. So oftentimes without additional support, it is difficult to overcome those cultural and linguistic barriers. And so neither party feels comfortable reaching out to begin the conversations. And it's so key to establish those conversations at the beginning, because then again, when you do, then we see that teachers and families are able to establish partnerships so that they could discuss standards, they could establish goals, and really monitor jointly the plan to get children educated. But when that doesn't happen, then conversations are put on hold until there's a challenge to resolve. And once you call people at that time, the interactions may not be as positive.
And I'm just going to add a comment to what Araceli has shared. And I don't know if anyone noticed yesterday on the front page of the LA Times was an article about developing or building solidarity between the Latinx community and the Black Lives Matter movement, or the African American community, which is one of the priorities that we are looking at within PAWN. So that when we highlight diversity, and there's like at least a two-step process where there are Asian American communities. Diversity involves Asian Americans, involves Latinx, involves African Americans, and really important for parents to reach out to each other and engage each other. I think it makes it a little more feasible for educators if there's also, as you mentioned, whether they're parent liaisons, whether I think we all know that in some districts there are parent centers, and the centers have directors, parents that are director. But sometimes it's not easy to reach the ethnic groups that are in smaller percentages, and that will vary depending upon what the geography is. So I only wanted to stress that the challenges of cultural and linguistic diversity also pertain to the engagement of all parents in a diverse school setting, as well as the parent body with the faculty and other members of the staff. So actually, thank you very much, Mr. Garcia, for your questions. If it's okay with everyone, we can open it up now for any final thoughts from the panel, any interaction with our guest. We have just an open period now for discussion and comments. Any closing comments that Araceli or Rigel or Shulamit or Jessica would like to contribute?
I think we still have time, so I don't know if there's more questions from Mr. Garcia or Sydney Martinez.
This is Richard. I appreciate it. I appreciate the insights and the report. I look forward to writing on it.
Thank you.
Great. So we actually can go back through with each of our panelists. You have a couple of 2-3 minutes if there are any closing remarks you'd like to add.
So this is Rigel. I'll jump in. I really appreciate PAWN for doing this research and giving the needed sort of research foundation to what unfortunately is so many parents' daily lived experience. And I think we have great leadership in California that understands the importance of these issues, and there have been, proposed in this year's budget was an incredible investment in teacher professional development, which we would really hope would encompass these important issues of parent and family engagement. And just recognizing we're in extraordinary times. And so this reminder of the importance of every school staff person liaising and opening doors and connecting with our parents, and particularly our most marginalized immigrant parents, parents of English learners, and parents of color, parents struggling with the things that people are struggling with today, housing and job loss. And schools have been hubs, our community hubs, and there are places where families get connected to resources. And that doesn't happen effectively unless we have strong two-way communication. So this is really about our state social safety net and the well-being of our students and families. I just appreciate the research that's gone into this. It's an incredible piece, and it really lays out to-dos for all of us, the advocacy community, activists, district leaders, school leaders, as well as state leaders in the legislature and at the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. So thank you so much, and I'm privileged to be part of this report.
Thank you, Rachel.
And I would like to join and thank Araceli and Pon for the great work on the report, and I'm so excited that in my career and my journey, a professional journey, I have met Araceli and was able to know her work and partner with her. And both of us are on the pre-service consortium of the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement, really working on the issue of the teacher preparation requirements for family engagement. So it's really exciting. And I also want to say that in the field, we see example of extraordinary work with families and developing family leadership. There are districts like El Cajon Valley School District that hires family engagement liaisons that from every cultural group that that children are coming from. So it's really amazing to see some of the work that is done, but absolutely we need a unified educational system that sees family engagement as a must, and especially with the period of time that we are experiencing right now. And all teacher preparation program needs to see the need to focus on family engagement as a standalone courses, embedded also in other courses, and requiring field experience. So this is my hope for the future.
Thank you, Dr. Ritblat. It's really great to hear an optimistic reflection on all of the work that has been done, all of this research. We're going to hand it over to Araceli in a moment, but on behalf of Pon, I also want to thank you so very much. I've had the privilege of being more involved in this report than some of the previous reports, and so I think we're all going to drill down and dig in and make sure that we take some next steps, as you had indicated, to engage the activist communities and to engage the CTC, as well as the Board of Education in Sacramento and locally. So this is a wonderful resource, Araceli. Just one thing that I know that Dr. Ritblat just gave us an example. I think you were going to give us a couple of examples of what you have seen also as the most promising, or some of the promising sites that have come from the study.
Well, definitely. I definitely encourage everyone to look at the report. In addition to the policy findings and recommendations, we have, it is so heavy because half of it is really sharing a lot of the resources that we found in the field. So in talking to the professors, many of them share their syllabus with us. So we are able to really examine what the content, the type of field work, and so we're encouraging those that are interested to definitely look through that. For school districts, the last appendix also shares programs for administrators, school site teams, as well as teachers from 16 different providers, ranging from universities, county offices of education, for-profit, and nonprofits. And so the time is just, we want to make sure that we elevate this topic, because what we hear every day with our day-to-day work with parents is about the need, again, of communicating communication. In the next few weeks, we'll also be sharing findings from focus groups, because we have been talking, we talked to about 77 parents through 18 focus groups on the pandemic and the impact and the recommendations that they have. So this aligns perfectly. And the big request is, of course, more communication, so that, again, as we start a new year, we're able to work in collaboration to assess where students are at, or learn what the assessments say, and to plan the year ahead. Because again, learning is only going to happen when we're working together as parents with teachers, now more than ever. So thank you everyone for your time, and I look for your contributions to this process. It was about an 18-month process, and so there's been a lot of conversations, and I look forward to our partnership in the next phase, which is triggering advocacy at multiple levels.
Thank you, Araceli. Jessica, any final remarks?
No, muchas gracias por tomarnos en cuenta en nuestra organización y gracias por seguirnos instruyendo. Me da mucho gusto que haya más personas como nosotros que estén luchando por el mismo fin, que son nuestros hijos. Gracias.
And the big request from focus groups, from parents across, about 10 different school districts was, don't just talk to us, talk to our children. Mm-hmm. So we will also be including and doing research to hear directly from students, because they have a different point of view, and we haven't heard from as many students at this point.
Lorna, I think you might have been ready to translate for Jessica.
No, all I wanted to say is thank you very much for taking me and my organization into account. I am happy that people like me are included, that we are looking for the best for our students. Thank you.
Well, thanks to everyone this morning. I think we recognize that young people are counting on us to find a way to form strong and trusting, interdependent relationships. It really does sort of go back to now more than ever that it does take a village. We do need to relate to each other on more than just the levels, as Dr. Ritblat had said, in terms of simply the academic and simply the standard and what does the data say, and accountability in that way, to accountability to our children who are depending upon us to really come together. It's a fantastic invitation. It's like this is one of the, I won't say silver linings, but it's something that we didn't anticipate, that we would be so connected now because of the pandemic, and modeling. It's an opportunity for us to model our devotion to our young people in the way in which we reach out to one another. So with that, we are going to formally close this report. And thanks to everyone who's participated. Thank you to our guests, and thanks for remaining. I just want to go back to one voice we have not heard, Sydney Martinez. I'm sorry, I know that Mr. Garcia is from the media. I'm not sure where you fit into the constellation here, but would you like to make any comments?
Yes, sorry, I am an intern at Public Advocate.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I didn't introduce myself. I just wanted to hop on the call and hear what was going on. I was invited by Rigel. And I really appreciated hearing what I did here. And I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you. Duke, any final remarks that you would like to make?
None at this time. Thank you for asking.
All right. Terrific. Well, we are going to remain on for those of you who can continue. I think the recording may stop at this point. So for anyone who has an opportunity to see this recording in the future, you will see, I'm sure, a way to get in touch with public advocates, with all the participants, with the Parent Organization Network. And with that, I'm Joyce Germain Watts on behalf of PON. Thank you all. And we'll work together in the future, strengthening family engagement and the partnership that will pay dividends for our young people. Thanks, everyone.